Hey there. I am going to try and attempt to answer the question that I get all the time, which is um, how do I kind of balance out what I want to eat and what I should eat? And when I get this question, my immediate response that I want to say is that you can't do the shoulds. Um, if you've truly rejected the diet mentality, the shoulds get to go away with that. The needs to, the supposed tos, the rules. And the shoulds and all that are just another form of a rule telling you what to eat, how much to eat, and that doesn't belong in intuitive eating because that's not listening to your body. That's eating according to what you've been told you should do. So it really just doesn't work with it. Your body will tell you what you should eat, and you don't need an outside source telling you what you should eat. But I know that most people's worries when they're asking that question is more about the beginning process because if you've watched some other videos, one of the processes is making peace with food, and this is probably the most important part of it. And making peace with food is about giving yourself unconditional permission to eat any food you enjoy and to not have any more guilt or judgment. And that sounds really scary to most people because your first reaction is, well, I'm going to eat everything or I'm going to eat all unhealthy food. And just know that that is a reaction that is coming from dieting, because with dieting, when you ate those foods, of course you overate them because you weren't allowing yourself to eat them. So you're like, oh, I'm never, this is going away after I eat this, and you knew you were going to deprive yourself of it again, so you want to overeat it. Well, with intuitive eating, that's not an issue because that food or those foods are not going away. Okay, so back to like what I want to eat. So, and what I should eat. In the beginning, like when you're first making this transition, and you're trying to make the peace with the food, the process that she kind of lays out is that, you have to kind of sit down and make a list of all the foods that you enjoy. And it might take a while because when I did it, I found out I forgot about a lot of foods that I enjoyed because I had been dieting for so long. So yeah, and then you kind of, ask yourself, which one of those foods do I eat or do I feel comfortable eating? And you check them off. All the ones that you have left are the foods that you need to make peace with, that you don't feel comfortable eating or that you haven't allowed yourself to eat. So those are the foods that you need to kind of work on figuring out if you even like them anymore, and work on letting them back into your life. So yes, you're going to be eating a lot of foods that you weren't eating before, or that you were binging on before. But it's a really important process because if you don't go through it, then you won't ever trust yourself. You won't ever prove to yourself that you can handle those foods. As long as you restrict a food, you're just going to want it even more, and you're just going to crave it even more. So if you don't work out through this process and go through all the foods that you enjoy, then there's still going to be those foods that you're like, no, I can't handle those. I don't trust myself. And as long as you don't trust yourself, then this process doesn't really work. Because you are the one that's going to be in charge of your eating decisions, and so you need to have trust in yourself. So yeah, in the beginning, it's probably going to be a lot of what she calls play food, and less nutrient-dense food. But that's okay. It's a natural reaction from being deprived for so long, and it's not going to be a binge fest. That's not what it is, because you're listening to your body and you're eating when you're hungry. And you'll eat less actually, and you won't need to overeat because you're eating foods that are satisfying and they're not going anywhere. So yeah, it is really important to eat what you want. And then where the shoulds, if you want to call them that, come into play, those nutrient-dense foods. When you go through this process, your body knows what it should eat. So as you're testing out all these different foods and eating what you want, eventually your body is going to crave those more nutrient-dense should foods. But it'll be a natural process. It won't be you forcing yourself or choosing to eat those foods because you think you should. It'll be your body telling you, man, I really need some protein, or I really need something green. And then it'll be different because you're choosing to do it because you want to, because that's what sounds good and that's what your body wants, rather than because you think you're supposed to. And that makes all the difference. It really does, because when you're choosing to eat the should foods because you want to, then you're not going to feel deprived. And then you're not going to need to binge on all those, less nutrient dense foods because you're not setting yourself up to feeling deprived by eating should foods when you don't want to. So yeah, eating what you want is important. And the whole time eating what you want is important because, as I just said, when you naturally work your way into those should foods and want them, then you're still eating what you want. You're wanting the should foods, but you still want them. So the whole time you're eating what you want. But the difference is that those healthier should diet foods end up being wanted naturally rather than being chosen because you think you should. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, just know that eventually your body will naturally work itself out and the whole play food and nutrient dense food will balance out. Your life is not going to be Twinkies and cereal and ice cream, okay, because that will make you feel miserable and your body's going to tell you that. So just know that getting there naturally is what works, not forcing it to happen because you feel like it should happen. So that's going to be my 2 cents on that, and I have tried to make this video so many freaking times, but it's just kind of really hard to explain. But the video I believe that would help you if you're still kind of struggling with this is principle number 3, making peace with food. Talks more about that whole process at the beginning and getting to the wants and the shoulds and all that. So check that out if this left you completely confused, because I know I'm still a little confused, so I wouldn't blame you. See ya.